what do you expect from the defense for your Irish?
To some degree, I think Notre Dame's defense is even more of a question mark than Miami's as far as what they're going to look like structurally. Because at least with Miami, you can kind of look at Corey Heatherman and say, hey, look, I can break down film last year from Minnesota and see what he did that worked. Whereas with Chris Ash, you're like, well, where are you going back to? 2020 Texas, where he implemented the defense without an offseason because of COVID? Are we going back to Rutgers? Are we going back to Ohio State? I mean, it's so different. And is he going to have a similar level of adapting to the modern game that we saw Al Golden go through? Where if you look at what Al Golden did at Temple and what he did, where he's a 3-down coach, and what he did at Miami and how he tried to develop that defense with his D coordinator, and then goes to the NFL and he coaches offense, coaches some defense, and then he comes back to Notre Dame and he's running a completely different type of defense than he did before. I mean, he's an Al Groh disciple. This is back in the 90s, 2000s, 3-4. I mean, I still remember some of those linebacker rooms they had back at UVA back in the day, with Kai Parham and Ahmad Brooks. And it's just such a different defense. And I think the time in the NFL made him a better football coach as far as in the modern game.
Right.
Will Chris Ash have a similar impact? I hope so. But I mean, we honestly don't know. I don't have anything to point to. I can look at some things we saw this spring and really focusing on fundamentals and flying to the football and playing fast. And I think that's, if he's willing to do in the fall what he did in the spring, I think Notre Dame's going to still be one of the better defenses in college football, because the one thing he's got length, he's got speed, and he's got depth. And, Notre Dame has recruited that position extremely well since Marcus Freeman arrived back in 2021 as the defensive coordinator. So it's going to be a very talented team. It's going to be a very deep team. It's going to be a very fast team and a long defense. But as far as like structurally, are they going to blitz as much as they did under Al Golden? Are they going to play as much man coverage as they did under Al Golden? Those are the question marks. But the one thing you're going to see is a defense that is really fast, really athletic. And that's what we saw last year. I mean, I remember having a conversation even with a Notre Dame fan. They're like, I don't know if they can handle the speed of Georgia. And I was like, that's the last thing I'm worried about with Georgia. I'm worried about whether or not they're going to kick Notre Dame's butt in the trenches. Right. One thing I'm not worried about is, can they run with Georgia? And I think that's honestly, Corey, the biggest misunderstanding a lot of people have about Notre Dame now under Marcus Freeman is they still think this is back in the Notre Dame teams. They had big offensive linemen and big defensive linemen, and they're going to ground and pound you. But if they got into a track meet, you're going to be in trouble. I mean, there was a period where that was true of Notre Dame, and they weren't very good. I think when you look at Notre Dame back in the late 80s, I've said this, the reason they could hang with Miami back in the late 80s and in 1990 was where Miami was underrated back then by non-Miami fans was, we all know they had athletes, but they were so good in the trenches, especially on defense, whereas Notre Dame could kind of neutralize that. But Miami was an incredibly athletic team, and people don't realize how athletic Notre Dame was from 88 to 90. And that's what made those games so good. And I think then Notre Dame became this slower, bigger program for over like a 20-year period. And now you look at them and you're looking at Leonard Moore and Christian Gray and Drake Bowen and Kingston Viliama-Asa and the guys that bring Jeremiah Love. I mean, when was the last time we went into a season where you could argue that Notre Dame had the best corner and best running back in college football? I mean, you could say maybe it's this, but they're in the conversation as the best player at their position. I mean, you'd have to go back to what, maybe 1992 with Jerome Bettis and Tom Carter, maybe. So I think that's the difference between this team and past teams.